Hello, Kenny Farage here. A very warm welcome to the Jaggy Thistle. This is another of our experiments in video, in audio, trying to test the boundaries of what this 60-something boomer can do in the technological age. So bear with me while we try and do this. This is the second time I've tried to do this. I think it worked quite well the first time. I'm going to give it a go for a wee while, see if it catches on. It's when I talk about the column that I write weekly in the Times newspaper. I write a weekly column on Scottish politics in the Times newspaper. I have done for the last 10 years. And what I'm going to do is just describe why I've written what I've written, talk you through the argument a little bit, and put it over to you for discussion. So this week I was triggered, as the young people say, by a press release put out by the SNP at the weekend. And now it was a political attack on Ian Murray. Now Ian Murray, if you don't follow politics closely, is the Secretary of State for Scotland in Keir Starmer's cabinet. He's a UK cabinet minister from Scotland, from Edinburgh, and it was a perfectly legitimate attack as far as politics goes, as it was criticising him for changing his mind, for having U-turns, as you say in politics, on some of the things he believed in opposition. So it looked at the things that Ian Murray had supported, motions he'd supported in the Commons when he was an opposition MP, and compared that to his actions and the things he supported in government as a cabinet minister, and drawing a contrast on that. That's perfectly legitimate politics. What concerned me was how that was wrapped up and presented, and it was presented to the reader as the hypocrisy files. It was accusing Ian Murray of being not just politically wrong or politically changing his mind, but of being a hypocrite for saying one thing in opposition and another in government. Let's put aside for one thing about you govern in you campaign in poetry and you govern in prose, that great Mario Cuomo quote, and also the fact that that it's all very well to have airy opinions in opposition, but government is a very kind of difficult, conflicted, complex, and process that requires consensus and compromise and what have you, politically and on policy terms as well. Put all that aside, is it fair to call Ian Murray a hypocrite? Is it? It's the difference between a political attack and something that is attack on his character. Okay, it's attack on his personality. It's an ad hominem slur on Murray himself. Okay, a criticism not of his judgment, but of his character. Okay, and his not just his character, but his integrity. Now, is this fair? It's rough politics, and I wonder whether this kind of politics, coming from one of Scotland's mainstream parties, is a misjudgment, and a misjudgment particularly at this particular time in Scottish politics. 10 months out from the Holyrood elections, they happen in May next year, and Nigel Farage's Reform UK is on the rise in Scotland. We still don't know the extent to which it will be challenging for second, third place, first place. Who knows? We're in a very, very fluid situation, and the polls may be right, the polls may be wrong. We really do not know where things are heading. But what we do know is that Reform is entirely capable and willing to drag our politics down into the gutter. Okay? This is the hard right insurgent populist movement that takes its political cues from Donald Trump and all the other insurgent nationalist populist leaders across the world who have the same playbook. They know what works. You stoke fear, you create division, you raise doubt about the integrity of the entire system, you feast on people's disillusionment with mainstream political system and with politicians in general, and you ride that tide of populism and anger into what Nigel Farage hopes will be power. Now, the Scottish Parliament elections are going to be the first big electoral test of reform. Also in Wales, less so in Northern Ireland perhaps, but Scotland and Wales are going to be the test grounds for this new politics. So I think a lot depends on how we, as mainstream Scotland, I'm using we here. I'm not assuming anything about you. I'm saying that, you know, the people who are in the mainstream political parties within the mainstream political system who are resisting the move to populism, and I include myself in that. How we in mainstream Scotland can best resist this wave. And I think one of the things that we should not be doing is using populist techniques against each other. Because attacking a politician, a rival, as a hypocrite is using the Trump playbook. It's using the populist playgroup. It has a couple of very major flaws. First of all, it defeats its own purpose. The ad hominem attack draws attention from the actual politics that you're trying to highlight, because personal attacks always do. It becomes about the personalities rather than about the politics. You lose sight of what you're actually criticising them for. And secondly, the mainstream parties in Scottish politics are going to need each other. They may very well need each other by the time we get to next May. The day after the Holyrood elections, we may well find that an alliance of the mainstream Scottish parties, and I mean those as the SNP and the Labour Party, may be necessary to freeze out Nigel Farage from power or from influencing power, for stopping him being the kingmaker in Scottish politics. All depends on the arithmetic. Regular readers of my work over the last year and a half will know that this is one of my themes. Okay, I tend to have a number of themes on the go in my political journalism, and I keep coming back to them, hopefully in different ways, showing them in different lights, testing them in different circumstances, but a number of themes which I think are relevant to the moment we're in, and perhaps aren't really being given the attention they deserve by the political mainstream. And this is one of them. I think that we need to anticipate and prepare for the moment when the Scottish political mainstream, SNP and Labour, may need each other to freeze out reform. And that will be difficult if it comes to that, depending on the arithmetic. It may not be necessary. The arithmetic may make it necessary. And that moment will be all the more difficult. The conversations are going to be hard enough. They're going to be even harder if you've just been, calling your interlocutor a hypocrite. So my ask of the politicians over the next 10 months in Scottish politics is try not to do things which will make it difficult or impossible to reach out across the aisle to your erstwhile opponent, your erstwhile rival, and make common cause with them, because it may be necessary. So have that at the back of your mind. Do not do anything which will act as an impediment or could damage that possible alliance, because we don't know what's coming, but we know it's going to be challenging. We know it's going to be difficult. Trumpism is coming to our shores, and it should really find us at our best. That's my argument in the Times today. Please, I'll put a link to the actual written column, which you'll find on the Times website, in the notes to this video. I hope you're enjoying these little extempore, off the top of my head videos. Let me know in the comments. And if you are a subscriber to the Jaggy Thistle, can I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for your support, for supporting independent Scottish journalism. And if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing either for free, which is possible, you get some content for free, or as a paid subscriber to make a financial contribution to independent Scottish journalism. So thank you for your attention today, greatly appreciated. We'll see you next time. Cheerio.